The trouble with business-to-business marketing is that they like a 50-slide PowerPoint to explain all of the benefits. Well, if you look at a corporate client and their product, think of that as a carrier for a bigger concept. And the concept can be what that product does or what it means for the individuals who use it, rather than the product itself. Life wasn't all, rainbows. But back then, getting into theatre was a huge part of my life. It kind of saved me, really. This was the first big found family that I had. And I got into the theatre by accident, completely by accident. I got to see how other families live, and I thought, wow, mine is not normal. Bring us your corporate shit. We will find a way to make it interesting. So I learned very early on that there was a market for filmmaking in a corporate setting, right? If you can dovetail the learning moments with the entertainment seamlessly, so it doesn't look like training.
I think we all should talk about it, and especially people who are creatives. AI.
Biggest question I get asked is my job under threat? Is my work under threat? Times are hard and people get nervous. And the problem with AI is just hating AI is not going to fix it.
Oh, no. And it's not going anywhere.
It's going to be part of life. So the first book, Three Guys Walk Into a Bar, is about the type of creative person you can be. People think that if the diary is full, they're doing well, and that's great. I meet a lot of freelance creatives who haven't figured out their value. And they also don't know how to talk to businesses. The second book, The Green One, was Once More with Feeling, which was all about trying to get clients to be brave. You sound like everybody else. Do you want to be different? Do you want to sound like everybody else? We've evolved as animals that remember stories and characters and structures and things we felt.
Hi, I'm Jerry Rogozin. This is Beyond Real Talk, and my guest today is director, author, karaoke king, entrepreneur, Jim Shields.
Hi.
Look, finally we are here because I remember when more than a year and a half ago I started the podcast and I had you on my list of possible guests. You reached out to me, you said you are up for doing it. And finally, we're here.
Wow. Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
It's the first spot we've had, really, where we both had the same space.
Yeah. And again, I'm not sure. Are we allowed to say where we are?
Yeah, we can talk about what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is the current season of The Inside Man. We'll leave it at that.
And we're at the unit base, and it's the production that is happening right now. Today is the day off, though.
Yeah.
And we have the unit base for ourselves. Look, before we dive into everything else, is there anything you want to tell me or I need to know about your childhood or anything else that formed you as a person?
Oh, wow. That's a big one. A few years ago, I did a TEDx talk in Leicester. It's on YouTube. My name is spelt wrong. I didn't edit it. I talk about, in that TED talk, a little bit about my upbringing. And it was very working class, underprivileged, I would call it. And more recently, I talked in a show that I wrote for the Leicester Fringe Comedy Festival. A little bit about my upbringing in terms of what my parents did. And my dad left when I was 6 years old, so I didn't know him very well. But I heard stories about him, and he was a salesman. And I understood that he was a good salesman, and he sold the boring products like paper and office products and that kind of thing, like, competitive. But back in the day when that's all there was. And he was an Irishman. He was a solid, charming guy. He did well in sales. My mother, however, turned out to be a real grifter. I mean, a real grifter, as in a criminal. And I found out that she'd been to prison twice.
Oh, wow.
And I just thought, I remember those times as me going off for a holiday at my grandmother's in Ireland. Okay, so, I thought they were holidays. No. My mother was on holiday of a different kind. So I went to prison, she went to prison twice. The first time was both for fraud-based things like mortgage fraud, and she was arrested for passing off checks to buy expensive watches. She was an absolute grifter, and I found out later on in life. I got to go stay with family, friends and things at those times.
Yeah.
Obviously, I never knew about it. I had a really feral upbringing. I was left to my own devices. I was the eldest child of 3.
Okay.
And by the time I was 12 or 13 years old, I was ironing my siblings' shirts to go to school, getting them out the door. I would cook for them. My parents weren't around a lot, so I would just take charge, basically. So, yeah.
When you found out about your mother, when was it?
Oh, I found out about the kind of person she was much earlier than that. I mean, I left home when I was 17.
Oh, okay.
And I went to live with a girl that I'd met in a theatre company who was a lot older than me. She was like 10 years older than me. That, I'll give you a great example. I get a phone call from the local police at my place of work, one of my early jobs. I was working for a local authority as an AV technician making media for them, right? So the police said, we'll come and talk to you at your place of work. I'm like, no, I don't want you coming here. I'll come to you. So I went to them, went into an interview room. The 2 police officers sat opposite me, and they started asking questions about my mum and about whether or not I've ever had a mortgage, or about whether or not, what my financial situation was and all that kind of thing. I've not been working that long, like 3 years probably.
Yeah.
And so I got the feeling something was going on that I didn't know about. And they were whispering to each other in the room, and I'm literally sat there. I heard one of them say, he doesn't know. And so one of the guys leaves the room, comes back with a file this thick.
Yeah.
And it's my mother's criminal record. And so she had used my signature as guarantor for a mortgage. And so I'd inadvertently become liable for a mortgage that was reneged on and not paid. So I spent until I was 30 clearing my name and really trying to gather some sort of credit. Wow. Some kind of a credit history that was positive. So I knew what kind of person my mother was. I'd only seen documentary evidence of it recently.
Yeah.
I was looking on Ancestry.com. There are newspaper articles about her rogue days. She sounds kind of like, if she wasn't a criminal, she'd be really cool. I mean, but I don't agree with anything that she did in principle. Yeah. But actually the life of this woman who was, found driving around town in a Rolls Royce with a guy called the Count, who's that, who calls themselves that these days? Or is it the Duke? Might have been the Duke.
Yeah.
And she was writing checks that she couldn't cash, and for expensive items. I think what got written about was just the tip of the iceberg, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff they know about.
Yeah. And in my childhood, there were always really colourful people coming around to the house. Mm-hmm. There was like entertainers, people who sang in nightclubs, and one of my earliest jobs was working in a big old northern nightclub, where on a Saturday night they'd have turns. They'd have people turn up to sing or do magic or dance or whatever. It was a dinner and a show. And I would walk around the club with my camera taking pictures. This was when I was probably about 19 to earn extra cash. And there would be all sorts of characters in there. It was a real mob sort of club in Salford in Manchester. And
how were your relationship with your mom after that, when you found out?
There wasn't one really.
Oh.
That I didn't. It's not good. It was not a good relationship. I don't remember a lot of love, and I don't remember a lot of support of any kind. She did used to kind of parade me around her friends a little bit, because I guess I was fairly smart and I did okay at exams and things. So she was like, "Oh, my son's a genius," blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't know. I felt like I was being like a puppy being passed around at a birthday party to some extent. So no, I didn't really have a strong family situation. So and that again expresses itself today in that when I get involved with the production, I try to make friends with everybody, and I try to build a kind of found family, and I try to connect with people.
I read that you started doing experimenting with, making films when you were around 12.
Probably a bit later than that. There was a VHS camcorder involved, one of the old JVC ones, that are iconic now, like the one on Back to the Future. And a friend of mine called Bob Etherington, he and I were best friends, and we were involved in theatre together. I think I must have been 15, actually. It was a bit later than that. And every New Year, we would make a film to be shown at midnight on New Year's Eve at the party.
Nice.
That was just a thing year after year that we did. And we ran around and we did parodies of TV shows. We would run into people's homes or shops or whatever. We didn't care. And we just doorstep people with interviews and go, is it true what they say about you? And then they'd just say anything. It was all improvised. We did news reports, like stupid, horribly basic, stupid jokes that weren't funny, but, pretend to be reading the news, And our heroes were in shows like Not the 9 o'clock news and Alas, what was it? Alas, Griff and Jones, Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones. Those sort of comedians and writers. We wanted to make people laugh. And we just used to shoot loads of stuff. And then not edit it in the camera, because I didn't have an edit suite.
I can't even imagine, honestly.
It was long boring, is what it was. But actually, it was probably like a 10-minute film by the end of it. Yeah. And people waited for it. People loved it. And thankfully, they were all drunk by then. So it seemed better than it was,
How did you come to that? How did you come to theater? How did you come to actually wanting to spend so much time editing all this footage and making films?
I didn't want to do any editing. I hate editing. Honestly, I think you should let editors edit. I'm not a person who sits with an editor. In the early years, I would sit with the editor and go through the cuts. And I just started to realize that this guy has edited more than I have, and we should just leave him with the rushes and just do it, and then we'll comment on the finished thing. And I've done that since then. I've never really wanted to sit with an editor. Well, sometimes with sequences that you have a clear idea with, that you can see clearly, then if it's complicated and that kind of vision. But that's the only time I would ever get in a meeting with an editor, is to talk about specific things. But back then, getting into theatre was a huge part of my life. It kind of saved me, really, because again, I didn't come from a great family. Life wasn't all, rainbows. And this was the first big found family that I had. And I got into the theatre by accident, completely by accident. I had a friend of mine, I think we were 16. We would, be running around town. We would go to pubs and things, even though we weren't old enough. It
was a different time.
It was a different time. No, I think 16-year-olds go to pubs now. I do.
Yeah, but it's harder for them to get in, though.
It is harder.
Yeah.
And this story is one I tell a lot, which is how I got into theatre originally, which was he and I were coming back from the pub one Christmas, and it was freezing cold. Everything was covered in frost. And where I lived, there was a motorway that went through the city, and it was one of those that is sunken. So you could look down a sort of 30-foot drop down to the road, and you could see the cars going past. Mm-hmm. But if you could cut across that motorway, it cut about half an hour off your journey home. Yeah. And so the way to do it, and there was an embankment to climb up on the other side, but this side was a sheer drop.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, there's a lamppost that goes all the way up and is like a meter away from the wall. Yeah. Right? And so, it takes your heart in your hands a little bit, but you jump onto this lamppost, you shimmy down, and then you cross the motorway and you climb up the embankment and you get home early. Right? So we did that. But we'd had a few drinks. Yeah. But also it was frosty. Ooh. And so I convinced my friend it was fine, you'll do it, it's fine. And he said, yeah, it looks doable, we'll jump on it. And he jumped on it first, and it's covered in frost. And he went, and he flew down this lamppost. And at the bottom, there's a shoulder. Yeah. So he hit that at speed. And anyway, he broke his ankle.
Yeah. Well, that's lucky.
Yeah, he was. He was lucky. Because there were cars as well. Not many, but, And so I got him home, and his mother freaked out. And I'm like, wow, she was a professional singer. Mm-hmm. And of course he was into theatre because I think she made him a little bit. And her madness seemed excessive. I mean, I know he'd hurt himself, and it was You could argue it was my fault, maybe. And she said, no, you don't understand. He's in a show that opens in 3 weeks. And it was a show by Rodgers and Hammerstein called Carousel, a big, lush musical, one of the classic American musicals. And he was in the chorus of that. So there were dances, there were 11 songs to learn and like 8 dances to learn. And it was, so she said, this isn't funny. You're going to take his place and you're going to be in that show. And so with 3 weeks to go, I got thrust into theatre.
Yeah.
And actually never looked back. It was great. I was terrified.
I can't imagine, honestly, because I remember
I'd never done anything before that, really.
Yeah, because I remember my first theatre run that I did in London in 2018 probably, and I was an actor for a little bit, at that point. And I did some showcases and I did some, maybe some screen acting, but never did theater. And it was like big play in Russian theater in London. It was Master and Margarita by Bulgakov.
Oh, wow.
It's like, it was a big role of...
A serious play.
Yeah. It's absolutely serious play. And we did it in cockpit. And when the director asked me like, well, I want you to offer this role. And I didn't know before. I just found it probably on Monday. And I was like, oh my God. I'm scared.
This is huge. This is real.
Oh, I'm so scared. And I was like, you know what? That's probably why I need to do it. And then, of course, you kind of, you get into it and you enjoy it. But at the same time, if you've never done anything and you've just been told like, well, that's what you do.
Yeah. If you want to grow, you've got to put yourself in harm's way a little bit. So
how did you get through it?
Well, it was life-changing. I stumbled through it because I was wearing his costume. I think he was very skinny and I was a little bigger than he was. I ripped the trousers on the Thursday night. I dropped down into a kind of Cossack type move and it went right up the back and I couldn't cope with that. And it was like, so I did the rest of that particular scene facing the front when everyone else is doing their thing. Looked like I'd gone rogue. No, but the overwhelming feeling was that there were all these people in like a family. It was my first major experience. Also, because you get to go to people's houses for parties or they invite you for something to eat at tea or whatever, I got to see how other families lived. And I thought, wow, mine is not normal. So it was amazing. And the chairwoman of the society kind of unofficially adopted me. She took me under her wing and I got to know their family really well. Her name was Sawney Williams, God rest her soul. And she was just she was like a stand-in mother for me for a while, and I loved it dearly, and she was just a brilliant person. And she just knew that she had a feeling that I just needed some support, and after that I got the bug and I thought, this is what I'm doing. I want to be an actor. This is it. So I went into that big time for a few years. I did every musical that would have me. It turns out I could sing, which I didn't know.
How did the realization come to you that you can sing? Because I know I can't.
Well, I managed to get through the show and I was in tune, right? Then they did a concert about a couple of years later. They did a concert and I auditioned for a solo, and it was the first time the whole group had really heard me sing on my own, and that was the real start then, because it was that my song was Starlight Express by Andrew Lloyd Webber, a musical about trains, and it was. I don't know, it was a nice song. I love the song. It was in a cabaret setting and I was terrified, but really worked hard on getting this song right. And everyone was like, wow, where did that come from? That was great. You should audition for parts in in the bigger shows that we do. And I tended to tour around different societies. This was all amateur, all Amdram. But my friend Bob and I would go all around these different groups, and we got really good. I trained for 3 years in dance. I got singing lessons. I went nuts about it. And then while that was happening, I managed to get a job when I was 19 in a film company. And so those two lives went in parallel. So I had like evenings and weekends I was on stage or performing in some way, and then in the day I was working for the film company as a camera assistant, traveling sometimes as well, And that went on for years. And then those two lives converged when I got taken on as a director for a Leicester production company. I had a company before Twist and Shout, many years before, that failed after 2 years because we had no customers. And that was
in Leicester, yeah?
No, that was in Manchester.
Oh, okay.
So I grew up in Manchester, in Salford, actually. If you can remember early showings of Coronation Street with the smoky tops and the terraced houses, that was where I grew up in that area.
So you were like all in on acting first?
At first,
yeah.
I thought I could do this.
What shifted you to the more behind the camera, directing, creating?
Well, I thought I wanted to be a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd got a camera early on and was doing these nightclubs and things like that. So I thought I was going to be a photographer, and that the acting thing might take off separately. Anyway, I realized fairly quickly that it's hard to make a life as an actor, and that it wasn't as secure as something that was more technical maybe, but still creative. So I wanted to be a photographer. And all my friends, I did a part-time course in photography at Tameside College. That was 3 years, but that was only 1 day a week. So it's what they call a day release course, where you get a job, but you're released for 1 day a week to go do the university thing, I guess. And it was, so that's how I got interested in photography. But basically, in the second year, you got a job over the summer they helped you find work in the industry. And all the studios had been snapped up by other members on my course. I was kind of late to it. I was late to everything, let's face it. And there was a film company, and I went, that's not really what I want to do, but okay, you know. And then they gave me a summer job, and I thought, actually, this is pretty cool, making short industrial films.
Yeah.
And at the end of the summer that year, I had it was the third year for me. I had a place at Harrow, Polytechnic, on a degree in photography, film, and television. And they offered me a job at the end of that summer, so I didn't go to university. So I deferred it. But then I just never got back. So I guess I'm still on my gap year.
But I think that's when you start working in the industry, any industry that you want to be in, and there's a choice between keep working and actually learning on the job, or going back to the university and learning something that might not even be useful at the moment in the industry. Yeah. You always have to choose the job.
Yeah, well, I took the job because I thought this might be the job I get at the end of the degree. You never know, you know. Yeah. So I took that, and I never looked back. They were a company, because they worked for big global companies. They traveled everywhere. I got to go to places you don't get to go, like Ascension Island in the South Atlantic. Nobody gets to go there. There was only the British Royal Air Force that would fly there. So we had to go in a plane that was not rigged with seats. You know, they'd bolt seats in for us, and then there'd be like a Jeep in front of us and a van behind and some pallets full of food. And because that company did industrial films, I learned very early on that there was a market for filmmaking in a corporate setting, right? They also were a rental house for training films, some of which were made by people like John Cleese. And so they were a screening house, the Northern Screening House for his company, Video Arts. And they made training films as comedies. And so people would watch them and enjoy them rather than just sit there and have to like take in the bullet points or whatever. And that was, I'm talking like 35 years ago. So I remember, because I knew how to thread a projector, I was a camera assistant, so I could thread a camera, so I could thread a projector. They asked me to run the projections when big clients would come in and use the screening room. And sometimes the client the client would be there. Of course, you know, somebody like once or twice, John Cleese would come and sit in, because it would be like IBM or somebody, so he would be like the celebrity that came in to seal the deal. And he didn't want to sit with the client he's seen these a million times. He's like, it's not it's not his main job. And he would just look for somewhere quiet, so he came to sit in the projection box. And that was pretty cool. So I got to sit with him while we were showing the kind of films I make today, like with this guy, it was famous, and it was really lovely. Yeah. But what I learned was that actually, if you go story first and you open up a channel with somebody because you made them smile, made them laugh, or made them connect somehow, You've now opened up a channel with that person. You've created a kind of remote rapport, and you can put information down it because they'll let you. You've earned permission to teach them something, but especially if you make them laugh. If you can dovetail the learning moments with the entertainment seamlessly, so it doesn't look like training.
Yeah.
And they love it for pure film, then you've won. You really have. That'll be a successful piece of training.
How did you come to that formula?
Just years of getting it wrong. I mean, when you start a film company, you just make anything that comes through the door. You haven't specialized in any way. You're like, we know how to shoot and edit and, write and that kind of thing. But we weren't super creative at the beginning. We just do a lot of talking heads films for executives and that kind of thing. But in the back of my mind, I always had the John Cleese model in my head, and I thought there's got to be a way to do this better. And we would always push in our treatments when we pitched for a job. We would always push creative treatments. We do the documentary stuff for bread and butter. But one of the reasons I advocate that you should try and break that as soon as you can is because that will fill up your diary, and you won't get the chance to develop anything else. So that's why I say to people, decide who you are and then go after that, even if you have to do other things to get there. But remember that those were temporary, and that you haven't won if you fill up the diary. As a freelancer, you think you have. You think, if I've got a full diary, I'm fine. But you don't have time for training. You're on the same rate every day. And if it's a good rate, well done. But basically, you're filling up the diary. So it stops you from being brave about other things. And certainly in the environment these days, you hang on to the work you've got,
Yeah.
So I'm not telling anyone to turn their back on that, but there was a year when we had I invited a consultant to come into Twist and Shout and look at the work we did. And we'd been doing a lot of comedy. We'd transitioned into the comedy guys. And he said, why don't you own that? Just be that. Turn down anything else that isn't comedy and just do that. And I'm like, wow, I still have a mortgage, It's a massive risk, but I did do it. And in that year, I think we turned down about £175,000 worth of work in 1 year. And that was scary as hell. But my wife at the time was like, we've still got a mortgage, right? Are you sure this is okay? And I'm kind of fairly sure this is the right thing to do. But it was scary.
Yeah.
And there's been a couple of moments in my life where you've had to do the big brave thing. And my drama teacher always used to say, leap and the bridge will appear.
Yeah, what were the other moments in your life when you had to do it?
Another one was when I fired our biggest customer.
Yeah.
And it was a French-American firm called Alcatel-Lucent. And we got a meeting. We'd done loads of work for them for about 10 years, but we never won an award for anything for them. We didn't enter a lot of awards, but we'd started to win awards because we thought it was a nice thing to do. And for this company that we'd done most work for, it had always been the talking heads things. And we tried our best to make them creative, but they were good money. It was bread and butter work, but it did fill up our diary sometimes, and we just couldn't do the cool stuff. And so I decided to make space for the good work, and we wanted to fire them. I never said those words, but I went in. I got nervous. I met with this group of executives. There was the chief marketing officer was in the room, and I built it as a kind of workshop on how you're using video, because we'd made lots of films for them, and we'd made good money out of it, but we felt they weren't using it properly. And I wrote an open letter to some of these execs saying, dear Alcatel-Lucent, please make fewer films, which as a filmmaker seems crazy. But what I meant was, don't make 50 films nobody watches, make 10 films everybody will watch, and be choosy. And they listened. I mean, there was a moment where I thought I'd just get thrown out.
Yeah.
But the guy at the end of the table just looked at the numbers and said, listen, you do a lot of work for us. We should listen to this guy. If you're prepared to walk away from all of that business, we should listen. And they did. The next job that we did after that, Rob and I created a series called The New Guy, which was a comedy about a big company acquiring a smaller company. And it was all about how the systems were broken between the two, and how you have all that agility as a smaller company and you just get things done. Whereas in a bigger corporation, it's like, there's lethargy and inertia, and you have to buy the right thing. And you have big companies that say, you have to buy this cable, you have to buy our cable, otherwise you'll invalidate the warranty. There was like vendor lock-in and concepts like that. We explained them all through this comedy series, and it was the biggest thing they'd ever made. And that year, they had more sales, partly due to this series of films.
Yeah.
Because their customer was the CIO, the Chief Information Officer, and they, if you're a CIO and somebody's made a comedy series about your job, how many series do you think there are about the CIO?
No.
None. There aren't any, right? We made the only one, and we've done that a few times with different things. We made the only comedy series. Every single CIO, they think every single CIO on the planet saw it. It's a big thing to say, but it wouldn't have been far off. So they became the people who were doing things differently and being agile, and so that worked really well. And I think that I don't want to say the number because it's probably private information, but they made a lot of money that year out of getting the attention of their community that they want to make money out of. So
how do you manage to combine the creativity and this story and characters, as for example in The Inside Man, we will talk about The Inside Man for sure.
Okay.
How do you manage to marry the story and everything with things that some people might call boring?
Yeah. Oh, we used to
corporate.
say, Rob and I used to say, bring us your corporate shit. We will find a way to make it interesting. Because the way stories work, you know how books, like there's a famous book called The Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, but it's not really about motorcycle maintenance. It's about a guy a couple of guys that ride across America, and they have conversations along the way, and they meet people and they learn about life. And it's really a book about philosophy.
Yeah.
But the motorcycle maintenance is just the carrier for it. Well, if you look at a corporate client and their product, think of that as a carrier for a bigger concept. And the concept can be what that product does or what it means for the individuals who use it, rather than the product itself. The trouble with business-to-business marketing is that they like a 50-slide PowerPoint to explain all of the benefits and all of the features.
To be fair, sorry to interrupt you, but to be fair, you look at those 15 slides or 50 slides or 120 slides, and then you read them all. And because I worked as a designer for a very long time, and I had to work with some of the information the corporations give you, and you just read through all of it, and you understand that there was nothing. You don't remember anything. There was nothing. There was no information. There were just words, a lot of big words, just as I call it, water. Just water.
Because that's not how we remember things.
Yeah.
We've evolved as animals that remember stories and characters and structures and things we felt. Yeah, and that's where it all comes from. Anyone in communications should tell you this. But we don't remember information per se. We're not built to remember information. A lot of us can't remember information because they don't have executive function. And so creating a story means that the part of your brain that puts itself in the story with you, or cares about a character, or gets upset, or has a laugh, that bit is a longer term memory than a logical memory. Logical memory is a shopping list. Eggs, bread, tea, whatever. That's a logical memory, and you have to try and somehow. That's why you write it down, because your brain's not going to remember it. You're not going to remember 10 items. But a story that has a winding road and things that happen to a character that you love along the way, you will just remember that more naturally. Yeah. That's the emotional memory that's in here. So emotional memory lasts for longer. You care more. It's more vivid. You create your own pictures up here, and that's why it's yours. And so when you create a film, all right, you're delivering the pictures as well, but you just care about the story and the characters, and it just lasts longer. So it's very efficient. It does a lot of things at once, whereas the logical side of it is very inefficient because you have to spell out every single thing, and try and learn that. So there's good and bad in both. If I want to, take YouTube, right? YouTube is either entertaining or it's how to do something, right? Just two categories, I would say.
Or people opening shit.
Oh, yeah, well, that's like how to do something. It's an unboxing is like
what's
I bought
inside?
This thing, here's what's inside. You don't have to buy it, I bought it for you. It's a how to, right? So if I want a new filter on my dishwasher and I want to do it myself and I don't know where it is, I'll look, there'll be some guy up north going, okay, so you lift the flap up here and you pull out the thing and you know, I'm watching it. It's a 3-4 minute video. He's not going to win an Oscar, but it tells me what I want right there and then. That is a logical video that makes sense. And I needed it. There was a place for that. But the other sort.
And by the way, I don't need anything else in that video.
No,
I just need you showing me how to, hammer a nail.
Where is the thing? Where is the thing?
Yeah.
You shuttle forward, you get the thing. The other type is entertainment, and we just sit and watch that forever. We're just like, whether it's cats dangling onto tree branches or whatever you're into, we just watch it for fun. And moreover, when we get like true crime dramas or something like that, we watch that. That's why we watch so much TV. Because stories are what we enjoy. They're fun. Yeah. So that's the two purposes really of that kind of thing on YouTube, I think.
And how did you get into understanding the story and human emotion for corporate? Like, was there a path for you in understanding how the story works in general?
Yeah. I mean, I was in a lot of shows when I did theatre. And what I learned in that was there are scenes that tell you what's happening, which is exposition. And then there are scenes that make you cry, and that's emotion. And that's why I knew the two worked hand in hand, and it's all about pacing and all that kind of thing. So I learned a lot about story from that. I also had some really great mentors. Brendan Reed Jones is a creative director, fantastic mentor, just taught me about production, taught me about what mattered, really taught me how to be brave and be creative. George Smith, who was a guy who gave me a part-time job when I was like 17 in a 16th century manor house. He was an actor, he taught drama, and he was my first professional drama person that I'd ever worked with. It was a part-time job to earn money at the weekends, but we would do the show where you had dinner and I would be one of the actors. And I'd say, what side do you want me to come on from? And he went, surprise me. And so I was like, oh, okay. It was that idea. He taught me about semiotics as well. It's really important because it gives you a language to be able to describe why you're doing something.
Can you elaborate?
Semiotics is the science of signs and symbols and what are called indexes. And so they're different categories of sign. They're like, I can judge a little bit about you from what you're wearing and what you've got on. Those are indexes. Those point to something about you. There are signs and symbols. So we know that the stick figure in a skirt is the ladies' toilet. That's a symbol. Signs or even icons, that kind of thing, can be a photograph. There's a lot of semiotics going on all the time. People do it unconsciously or consciously. And you can figure out why people do a certain thing or feel or think a certain thing from what is presented as the story or the image or the character or whatever picture you're looking at. And so I read a couple of really good books about that that George gave me. And he would talk about it all the time. It's so important. What is in the scene that matters? What do you think when you see that? And so when I'm now, having been on and off studying that for 30 years, what I look at with a scene or whatever as a director is that what is going to break the suspense of disbelief? What is going to break the story? What is going to break the attention span? Because people go, wait, it's like when you get the student in New York and, they live in a loft that's like, would be like $8,000 a month. Like, where's that money coming from? It just pulls you out of the story straight away. But that's kind of an information point. But also, if they drive a Rolls Royce, the Rolls Royce says something straight away. There's lots of signals that you would read. And I'm just about making sure nothing breaks it. So all of the signals that are going on in a piece, in a scene, don't break the story. They support the story more. So you just believe it more. And that's why they call it the suspension of disbelief. Because people look at a screen and you start by disbelieving it. Like, deep down, this is not real. But then you think, oh no, he doesn't know there's a bomb in the bag. Oh my God. Now you care. Because the brain has a thing it does with stories. The brain wants to put you in the story. It does. We don't know why, evolutionarily, why this happens.
It's basically empathy. Why do we need empathy?
Well, it's more than empathy in a way, because I don't know why it puts you in the story. It may be a survival instinct thing, almost like you're going to guess what's going to happen next. That would help you in the jungle or out on the savannah and you don't get eaten. I don't know.
I think just recently I've listened to a podcast where this guy who studies why people like, for example, scary stories, scary films.
Yeah, why would you scare yourself?
Or sometimes watching even, like real, something that I'm not enjoying much, but, like seeing some footage of real violent acts. Some people really kind of do not enjoy, but they watch it extensively.
There's the car crash mentality.
Yeah. And the thing is apparently that for us, we do kind of use it as almost like training in a way. Like we put ourselves in the place of, main character or whoever is in the video. And like for us, it's a chance to evaluate the situation. It's kind of possible, but at this point for us, because we're watching it,
it's a safe way of doing it.
Yeah, it's a safe way of doing it, but we try to learn what to do in the situation.
Well, day to day, you don't come across that. Most people have never been in a fight in the street, right? So, seeing other people and what you're doing is seeing humanity on the edges of itself, on the edges of what happens in extreme circumstances. So we're fascinated because we're never probably going to see that, but we're interested, and a lot of us would like to know what happens next, because you never know, I don't know. I think we are fascinated with it in a different way as well. It's quite macabre. It's a dark side of us that likes to, that's the wrong word, but is fascinated by extreme things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, honestly, if we think about we are still animals. There are some instincts that we have. Like, it's not like enjoyment, but we can sometimes find joy, even like, even if we think about revenge, fantasizing about revenge, it can be a violent act. And we are built in a way that we do enjoy it to a degree until, suddenly our mind gets clear for a time or something. Then you think like, why would it? Because I caught myself in this couple of times. I remember when I was doing food delivery on a bicycle, and I've been in situations when I was like, I was very close to dying. And I started arguing with the guy in the car, and I was ready to go. And I'm not a violent person. I had my last fight, like fist fight, when I was 15 in school.
Yeah.
But I was ready. And then like 15 minutes later, you think like, why? What were you thinking? Is like, just imagine you fought him. And then what? He was a fighter. He kicked your ass. One scenario. Second scenario, you kick his ass. And then what?
You go to jail.
Yeah. You have consequences to think about. And also, like, do you think he suddenly realized, I was an idiot, I almost killed? Like, that's
the least likely scenario.
You don't achieve anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think we do have something inside us.
Yeah.
Last year, I recorded a podcast with Rob McCollum, who you're working with, who is a writer of The Inside Man, and I think he was a writer. We worked with you for a very long time.
We have figured out that we've been working together for pretty much 20 years.
Yeah. And he told the story how you guys met.
Yeah.
Now I want to hear the story from your perspective.
I think it's probably the same, honestly. I mean, the difference between Rob and I is about 30 gigawatts of energy, because he hits things at 100 miles an hour. And I'm from British standards, I'm quite a lively guy. But by American standards, I'm just plodding along. So, but I think I think what's more interesting is we met. You look at that podcast, you'll see how we met. We met via his ex-wife, who was in an improv theatre troupe, and I went to a show in Dallas while I was working there, and we met. They got me on stage, asked me some questions, broke for the interval, came back, and then did the musical of my life, which I was fascinated with because it was improvised. It was all new. So I went to the bar to offer them a drink, and they'd really entertain me, and we got chatting. And I said, I travel a lot to Dallas, sometimes up to 5 times a year, could really do with somebody local to just take a meeting or do a brief or whatever, or set something up, and I'll pay it on an ad hoc basis, freelance. And she said, my husband is a filmmaker, and we live in Dallas. And so, so the next morning I went round for breakfast, and we got on so well I nearly missed my plane later that day. We're like two little kids showing each other their toys, and I've got a feeling it's highly possible Rob has told this in exactly the same way.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah. But that's what happened. And we never looked back, because within a month I had to make 3 web commercials for Alcatel-Lucent that were going to be shot in Dallas. And it was a scramble. And I said, I'm like, you're not just taking meetings anymore. You're now my producer, basically. So let's go get a crew. Let's go get talent. Let's get locations. And we did all of it. And we just seemed to have the same set of values, and we cared. We knew there was a job to be done with corporate that could be better. It could be better than the usual mush that gets churned out. It's ironic that these days that mush is now getting churned out by AI. So, but we knew at the time that there was a better way to do it. And we never looked back. It went on from there, and we're very good friends. And we complement each other really well, I think. This week's been a great example, actually, of how we complement each other.
Nice.
Because there was just time. Robert's got a really great, the producer brain kicks in, and he's very good at putting together how things have to happen in a story way, because he's the writer.
Yeah.
And also he helps remind everybody, well, especially me, this is where we are in the story. This has just happened. This is about to happen. And also 3 episodes ago, this happened. So bear that in mind. So Rob is a great locator. And even though there's a joke that I never read the scripts, I do read the scripts. It's just that when I'm on the ground actually directing the actors, one of the issues with ADHD is there's a poor executive memory, which is the bit of your memory to do procedural things. If you've got something that has several steps, I kind of get lost. Yeah, especially if they don't relate. I can make a cup of tea, but there have been times where I stare at the kettle and go, what happens next? Yeah. But basically, he helps with that massively. He's also intensely creative, so we bounce off each other, and he's pretty efficient. And also, we're sort of unoffendable, so we can be very direct.
Yeah.
Rob can write some scenes, and there'll be placeholder scenes really, but I'll be like, Rob, nobody talks like that.
Yeah.
And we can be pretty direct with each other, and it's refreshing, and it's a good, really fruitful relationship. And I know that whatever the future holds, I really want that to continue, because I think it's our secret sauce going forward. It's proved again and again and again that it works well. So the Inside Man, how did that happen? Tell me this story, because as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, this is probably the biggest project you created, right? Yeah.
Up to date.
The first one, we'd done similar side projects to that before, in terms of budget.
Yeah.
I can't tell you any of the numbers, but basically we'd done a fair few series of episodes. The one I mentioned for Alcatel-Lucent. We'd got into it a few years earlier, where it was a conscious decision to make a series of things rather than just one film to sell a product or train somebody to do something or whatever it might be. And so that was starting to happen. Long story short, we were, Know-Before was a client in the very beginning for season 1 of The Inside Man. We had not been acquired yet. Then halfway through season 2, we got acquired, and that went through, which was complicated, but it happened, and it went really well. And the proof of concept, everyone liked it. Everyone thought this is really fresh and different, and the feedback was really great, even in the early stages. We didn't quite have the traction, but the feedback was really, really good.
Yeah.
And we knew it was something different, and so did Know-Before, and so it fitted.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened, really.
And you got quite a few awards with the series, right?
Over the years we have, definitely. I'm very pleased to say I've got a cabinet. It's creaking under the weight of some of these awards, the Dolphins and the Knicks Award. And, it's great. It's great. So.
How did you, first of all, how did you come up with the idea in general?
We had 3 ideas. Here's where Rob's memory is very handy. But one of the ideas was to do with somebody who was a clairvoyant who could see into the future, which they really liked, because that Know-Before thing. That's the one,
Yeah.
And then there was The Inside Man, and there was a third one. You know what? it's terrible. I can't remember the third idea. But anyway, it was another scenario-based idea. Would have played to our strengths. But there was something about The Inside Man that was just because it was a good story about a guy that is undercover in a company meant to bring it down, and he does all of the things that employees could guard against. Right? And it was really, I would say by today's standards, it was a little bit on the nose then, but it's still really good drama. And we were so lucky to get the cast that we had, because the acting has been the one thing that has carried us through, and the writing.
Tell me more about the casting process. How did you get all the
We went through normal casting process where we would approach agents and we'd get people to send in. It was pre-COVID, so we didn't have to worry too much about self-tapes. It was in the room. We did all of our casting in the room, Rob and I. And the one interesting one was Benjamin Adnams, who plays Mark. He was one I held out. We hadn't got, literally a couple of weeks before shooting, we hadn't got our Mark. He was the last person to be cast.
Oh, really?
And we're kind of panicking a little bit because we had to get this done. And he'd sent part of a short film where he was sat in a bed and he was musing over a very sad situation, and he just made me want to cry. And I'm like, wow, this guy's really good, I think. And he'd had a bereavement at the time and wasn't interested in auditioning. And so I kind of waited it out a little bit, and I persuaded him. I said, I know this is a tough time for you, and I'm sorry about that. Is there any way I can meet you in London and I'll just bring a DSLR and shoot some video? And he went, yeah, okay. And I think that his feeling was, I'll get back into things, it'll make me feel better. And he auditioned in the basement of the Phoenix Artist Bar in London. Which would turn out to be featured quite a lot through the series in one way or another, whether it's whether it's the rap party or screenings, or whatever. Yeah. But in that basement, he auditioned, and I really liked him. And I feel like I've got a bit of an instinct for casting. I feel like we've been, you just know, and I can't believe how amazingly well that has turned out, and we're just, we're great friends now, and it's a lovely story because it wasn't, the universe will send you the person, I think.
What were you looking for in terms of character of Mark?
We wanted vulnerability and a little bit of innocence, even though he had devastating hacker skills and could bring down the company. We also wanted somebody that was a little bit naive, and he had that quality. He's pretty good at tech. He could do that. Sometimes Rob writes these sequences of, technical jargon and all of that, and you better be on top of it. Yeah. And it's really hard to say if you don't know what it means, but Ben has always been amazing at understanding what works. He's pretty IT savvy himself. He's very tech savvy. That helped a lot, especially in the early stages where there was more technical stuff to deal with. So it was a blessing. And he would quite often translate to other members of the staff. What that means is it's a bad thing. So that's how the casting it happened traditionally. Yeah. We got pointed in the direction of different people, and we just, a huge amount of luck. But also, I think we knew what we wanted. We knew what we wanted. So.
And with every year, because I came in on board with a tiny couple of scenes in season 2, and with every year it just becomes bigger and bigger. I remember you had in season 4 you had helicopters flying over London.
Everyone remembers the helicopter day. 2 helicopters, one with a camera. So, and we got permission to fly down the Thames because the pilot knew somebody at Air Traffic Control London and got permission on that day. On the day, I remember on the headset listening to it. This is Charlie Tango 101. We'd like to go for a little trip down the Thames. Is that all right with you? You know how they have that way of speaking. That's like, we're just going to take a little dabble down the Thames in our helicopter. And they're like, you've got a 5-minute window. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And just shot down the Thames. It's like, wow.
But here's the thing. So from, business perspective, some people might look at it and think like, well, this is way over budget for our, simple tutorial videos on cybersecurity.
It would be if they were making it.
Yeah.
Of course, nobody spends that kind of money if you're going to show it to one company.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's on a platform that has been described as like the Netflix for business, then it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's it's taken a while, but I think it has been worthwhile from a budgetary point of view.
Yeah, because I've heard that people it's kind of, for some companies who are clients of KnowBe4, as I understand, it's mandatory to watch those videos.
Yeah, it's
but
a
they
non-relationship.
are waiting for it.
Yeah. Some of the ones that are mandatory are there for a reason. They're to teach you to change the filter on your dishwasher. That's what they're for, right? They recognize these things, and they're presented in a professional way, and they're clean and tidy, and you don't have to climb over the creativity to get to the idea. But the Inside Man fulfills a very specific role, which is to give you context for all of the other stuff. And so once people get into the Inside Man and they become a fan, and we've got millions of fans, they really enjoy it, and they understand why the other training exists and how important it is. And I think that's a double benefit for the Inside Man. To know, like, you'll have a conversation in the office and go, can you really hack a car on the motorway and make it deploy the airbags? Can you affect a moving vehicle? And you can.
Yeah.
A lot of people go, you can't do that, so that's ridiculous. No. Most modern cars have got computers in nowadays and Wi-Fi, and you can get to them.
I'm just curious how, like, so when Rob writes a story, when you kind of discuss the story,
we generally come up with it together on the whole, like the structure of what happens. And then Rob is really good at breaking ground. I'm terrible. I would stare at a blank screen for a day. That's why I'm not writing it.
The question is why, like, you have to incorporate into, like, because it's so easy to just go into the story. You have characters, you want some things that you want to tell, and you have some things that you want to write about, but then you actually have to incorporate all the cybersecurity into it.
Yeah. We've got pretty good at that though now.
But how does it happen? When do you just get an idea, or KnowBe4 gives you like, well, we want to talk about this, and this?
Basically, to give credit to KnowBe4, they have let us get on with the creative side of it. And they have given us the subjects that need to be included. So they've decided what is the most important and useful things to teach people. Then we get a list, and we try to include those as much as we can on different episodes. Early seasons were all about that.
Yeah.
There was a point to every episode, or several points. Now it's a little more blurred because the story has taken over, but it's just as powerful. And because people love it, if we started to go back to that early way of doing it, I think people would see it kind of clang or grind the wheels a little bit, But I think it's earned that, I think, in its popularity. And it still is teaching people about the world of security. Yeah. Now we understand better that it is there for context. And now we know that, we can get away with a bit more story, because that's the thing that makes people watch. And I've always said that if you don't open up that channel of communication with somebody, it doesn't matter what you say after that, they're not listening. Whereas everyone who is a fan of the Inside Man is really listening in a different way. And that's their relationship with the content.
Is there anything the most memorable thing about the, previous seasons? Something from set, something from the final product, or like your interactions with, with people, with the actors?
I'll give you a couple of examples. First of all, each season seems to have a first in it. So a lot of training in companies is fairly dry. We were able to have real relationships between characters. So there is a relationship between Mark and Charlotte. There's a relationship between Maurice and Erica. We have AJ and Violet. So we have couples in it. And so we had, I think it was season 3 or 4, we had our first on-screen kiss in a training film, straight to HR, let's go, and it was just a really nice relationship thing. The will they, won't they relationship of Mark and Charlotte has lasted through 6 seasons, and we finally have landed the relationship, And people want to see. They're curious. Everyone has their favorites. And so the fact that we had a fully choreographed fight scene in the last season. We've had deaths. We've had murders. You don't get that in training films.
Yeah.
And so I like all the firsts, the groundbreaking stuff. And I think the second thing I love is when I hear the stories of the cast telling me when they were in an airport and this guy goes up to them and says, "Are you in the Inside Man?" They get doorsteps on the street like celebrities do, because they are our celebrities. Because people love them, and they have a lot of equity in that sense.
And the viewership numbers, I think, is huge, right?
Yeah,
it's millions.
Crazy. Yeah, it's millions. Yeah.
Well, we are still working on the current season. I can't wait. I can't wait to see it, but we're still far away from that. You also wrote books. It's three guys walking to a bar.
Hey, the plug. Thank you.
Yeah. And once more with feeling.
Yeah.
So, and you're a speaker, right? You speak to people.
A lot of places. So I spent a lot of my career trying to educate clients into understanding the value of the sort of work that we do, right? So it can be brave, it can be terrifying. At least 2 people have lost their jobs over the kind of work that we do for commissioning us. So, and they've never been happy. I'm happy to report that they're fine, but it doesn't always fit the culture of the company.
Yeah.
So the first book, Three Guys Walking to a Bar, is about the type of creative person you can be. People think that if the diary is full, they're doing well, and that's great. And in the early stages of a career, it is great to get the work and learn and have an income and to be legitimate. I'm a professional photographer or writer or whatever. So but what next? So I describe what I see as the 3 phases of a creative career. Because there isn't really a career in a freelancer. It's like you can get better and you can charge more or whatever, but it's just, it takes you along, you don't drive. Whereas this book is about how to drive the career for yourself. And so that's the number 1 book, and that's what will relate to you and to any kind of small agency or freelance creative. A lot of the principles, I've had lovely moments where I've met people years later and they've had a copy of the book and it's like falling to pieces and there's post-it notes and there's writing all over every page, and that is really flattering to see that. And I'm glad it's done some good. And for me, it's been like a calling card that has got me speaking gigs around the world as well. So it's been really great. A lot of universities, a lot of marketing events, that kind of thing. So the second book was for the other side of the coin, and that was for the client. Because however creative you are and however good a communicator you are about your value, if that client isn't brave enough to take the creative solution, then it's no good. So the second book, the green one, was Once More with Feeling, which was all about trying to get clients to be brave. And actually brave pays off more than playing the game. You might keep your job for a bit, but the thing that'll get you noticed is if you try something different. And there are ways of doing it that you can de-risk. It doesn't have to be the terrifying leap that you think it is. And that's what that book is about.
But it must be hard, I think, especially with big companies, with corporate world. I think selling anything that is new to them is sometimes almost impossible. Explaining to them, like, stop talking like robots, no one understands you. But they say, like, yeah, but everyone does it. We have to do it. How to sell it? How to break the vicious circle? Yeah.
Well, you have to explain what you've just said. You sound like everybody else. Do you want to be different? Do you want to sound like everybody else? And there's this tension between looking legitimate and going, we are part of this industry. We are telecommunications or whatever it might be, and we are professionals. But then there's also everyone else says that, and it's difficult to break through the marketing noise. And you can do it with story. You can do it with making things. And now, branded content is normal. Sponsored content is normal. It's crazy. It's all normal now. But when we were doing it, and back when I was ready to write the second book, it was a scary thing to do. And also to do it well is expensive. So there's a risk. You're placing a bet. And so that's why I wrote the second book, because Rob says that I should have written the second one first, because it would have helped us get clients or whatever. But I wanted to do, I meet a lot of freelance creatives who haven't figured out their value, and they also don't know how to talk to businesses.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought, well, I'm always giving advice because I've become good at it over time, made a lot of mistakes. But basically, all of my tips and tricks are in that book, that first book, The Three Guys Walking to a Bar.
Why do you think, because there are three guys in that book, a guy, that guy, and the guy. Do you think everyone should become the guy?
No, it isn't for everybody. Some people are happy just being with the diary full. Like, you can't want more for somebody than they want for themselves. But the way to take more control is to follow that path in. This is my idea of one way how to do it. But when you might get to that guy, which is the second level, which is somebody who was recommended, somebody who has become specialist in a certain area, somebody who has got a great portfolio to prove it. And they're a bit more expensive. They are earning enough money so they don't have to work solidly every single day. So they can afford to go to an industry event and meet people and learn new things. They can train themselves up on a new technique. They can expand their own armory, as it were. So that's important. And so many people are just on the treadmill, just hopefully getting work. And they say, oh, the work's gone away. And you think, well, if you have more control, it wouldn't be like that. And work goes away. The industries suffer. Times get hard and then don't. You just have more of a fighting chance if you know how to explain the value that, not using you would be a mistake. So.
A wrong question.
Go on.
That actually it wasn't even in my plan, but I think.
Go on, be brave.
I think it's in a plan for everyone right now. Should be. I think we all should talk about it, and especially people who are creatives. AI. What do you make of it?
Oh, God, I get asked about this a lot. In fact, I've decided recently to do a second edition of the first book and include AI. I can't not do that. So that'll, in all my spare time, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I'll just get AI to write it. No. It's an interesting relationship with AI. I've learned a lot. What's helped me is having two curious, smart children who are of adult age now, and they have very strong opinions on AI, and they're both creatives.
Yeah.
And so I hear about digital natives coming into the market and what are they going to do with it. But what summed it up a while ago, late last year, I was asked to speak at an event in London as part of a panel, and there was an expert in creating AI products. That was like a deep digital expert. There was a woman who'd made a successful business explaining to small businesses how AI can help them. There was another guy that was more of a philosopher, I think. And there was me, and they said, we want you to come along because of the book, because you can represent humanity. So like, what, all of it? Okay. But it was a really interesting debate, and I've been fascinated with it ever since. And I've followed a lot of people who talk about it. I talk to a lot of independent creatives who are there. And the biggest question I get asked is my job under threat? Is my work under threat of being done by AI? And I always say, if you are in the middle, that kind of mediocre, for want of a better word, you're an average creative. If you write, average copy for average websites at a low cost, then absolutely AI is going to eat your lunch for you. It's going to take that work.
And it's not even like about, I think it means like your skills are mediocre. It's just like the tasks that you're solving.
The work that you get to do.
Yeah.
It might be the clients you have. But you can affect who you work for. You don't have to I stopped working for a set of clients to do the comedy and business thing. And I stopped. It was a big, scary risk. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any money then, My point is that times are hard and people get nervous. And the problem with AI is just hating AI is not going to fix it.
Oh, no. And it's not going anywhere.
It's going to be part of life. I do, however, believe that also AI is starting to eat itself. So the work that it creates that is kind of imperfect goes back onto the internet and then becomes research material for the next generation of AI. And so it's like, bleh. So what do they call it? AI slop? There's a lot of that around.
It's the thing, yeah, because not a lot of people, but and I mean, look, it does become better in many ways, technically, AI. Like you've generated pictures sometimes. Now I have to look at it twice to kind of realize, actually, you know what, this is AI, and it becomes better. But at the same time, people who work with it, my son, he is in a college and he wants to be, an artist. And he says it straight away. He's like, hey, that's AI. I'm like, yeah. And I myself, I worked as a designer for 20 years. Yeah. And I have, my opinion on the AI, like it's just, first of all, there's no point of hating it. You can hate whatever you want. It will not change anything. And also, a lot of the stuff that I did, it just makes sense not to use a person doing it and have AI do some mundane tasks that are very kind of, routine. And it makes it much faster. And you know what? It actually has more knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, it has more knowledge than any designer.
You always trust that knowledge, though.
The thing is, like sometimes it
makes things up.
Yeah.
If you go and look for a certain specialist in a certain area, you might get one or two real ones, but it'll make a couple of others up as well.
The thing is, even like because I do use ChatGPT to prepare for the podcast. I prepare for a podcast, and I was preparing the same. Like I do know you, I know your social networks. I kind of studied that, but also I asked ChatGPT about like, well, who is Jim Shields? And ChatGPT tells me, Jim Shields lives in Scotland. I'm like, can you please?
No, it doesn't.
can you please recheck, double check if Jim Shields lives in Scotland? Oh yes, you're right. Actually, you know what? I just like why you? So you do have to check.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, what I believe that will come to pass with AI, and it's just it's not just my thoughts. I have listened to a lot of people who speak about it, who are in the creative industries. What I've heard people talk about is that the real creativity coming from humans will be the premium product. It will be the thing that is sought after. So your job as a creative is to include yourself in that layer. Like a lot of other things, where the premium product is the most expensive because it's real and it's crafted and it has personality. Yeah. And it's original. There is a need for mundane tasks to be taken away. And I don't know who said this, but I know somebody else said that what I want is AI to sort out my inbox. I don't want it to create the art that I want. I will now have time to create because it sorted out my inbox. And that, why are we making a machine that can do the things we want to do? We'll make a machine to make the other bits, the boring parts, more efficient. Yes, please, let's do that. But early on, when they had IBM had a computer called Watson, which was early AI, I guess, and it started generating contracts for lawyers and doing wills. And all of the mundane bread and butter work that a small average law firm would do.
And medicine, come on, please add AI to medicine, because it's like
medicine. It can spot a scan, it can assess a scan better than a human now, but in percentage terms. Yeah. But I also think that if a doctor meets a patient and understands a bit about their life, that's really important.
I think it will be just combination of people and AI. AI is a tool. It should be a tool.
There is a place for it.
Yeah,
there's absolutely a place for it. Yeah. I just think that creatives who are scared about getting consumed into the work area of AI and getting replaced by AI, I think your job is to be out there, do your job as a creative, and do something different. Now, we say, there's nothing different under the sun. There is, somebody once said that when you collide two things that shouldn't be together, there's a collision, and that is creativity. That gives you an infinite number of options.
Well, let's see how it goes. Okay, we lost a lot of light, and we are actually kind of running out of time a little bit, but there are a couple more things that I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
As a creative, it doesn't matter if you're successful or you're not successful. If you're in the creative profession, I'm sure you go through a lot of rejection. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, I used to go through a lot of rejection. And there's been some really heartbreaking moments where you really want the job and it's the right idea and they just don't see it. That's why I've evolved that's why I wrote the book, because actually there hasn't been as much rejection over the past 10 or 11 years because we understood how to change the nature of the relationship with the people who we wanted to buy what we do. As simple as that. So training clients in a way that gets them to understand your value is the best way to avoid rejection.
But how do you deal with it as a person?
You know what, the kind of rejection actually that really bothers me more than anything, and it doesn't bother me in a bad way, it is what I take notice of and what I really care about. So if it is a rejection, for want of a better word, is when fellow creatives who I really respect, and I like Rob and like the actors that we work with, if they disagree with a thing, I check myself and I think, oh, I got it wrong, So that's kind of a rejection, because you've said, I think it should be this way. And then they go, no, what about this? Now, sometimes it's joyous. Sometimes they go, what about this? And you go, oh, that is better than what I had in mind. That's great. And you need to be vulnerable and you need to have some humility. You don't have to be right. Yeah. In your gut, you can sort of know you are, and understanding when a better idea comes along is part of the skill set you need. You've got to be open to all of it. Nobody owns the creativity. If the client says, what about this? And it's great, let them have it. Yeah, great. We will make it happen for you, within reason. And so the rejection, I took myself out of the dating pool, as it were, for rejection, because I just took myself out of that pool by having something that nobody else could do or very few other people could do. And that's how I did it, because if you reject the pitch, then it wasn't for you. As simple as that. And in many ways, one of the best lessons I ever learned was that sometimes clients, you give them several ideas and they go, oh, well, why don't we mix a bit of that with a bit of that? And they mix two creative ideas. And I learned that you could take those ideas off the table and go, no, if we haven't got the right idea on the table for you right now, we will come back to you with another one. But what is it about that you like and that you like? And we will get a whole new idea that's a complete thing. But if you've got one idea that's set in medieval England and another one that's set in space, they're not going to mix. But clients just go, oh, I really like that. And I really like, can you somehow smush them together? And, they don't always know how the creative process works. So yeah, I would just say that, I'm sure there will be times in the future where my ideas get rejected. But at this stage in my career, I just really think I can analyze it better than I used to be able to. So I don't take it personally. I try not to judge the person who's rejected it. And I just ask questions. So use it as a learning opportunity. It sounds like such a cliche, but just, if you get rejected, try to build a process that gives you feedback. Yeah. And try to find out why. That's why we never liked responding to RFPs, requests for proposal. It's a cold wave. There's no relationship. There's no rapport there. You can't explain yourself in an RFP. So it's a terrible way of buying a creative product, because you're pitching creative people against each other. But creativity isn't a race. My creativity can sit alongside your creativity and we both win. It's fine. So the whole process of an RFP, I think, is broken and it doesn't work. What you should have is a relationship with a creative that you trust. Yeah. So, and that's how it works. So building those relationships are more important than responding to RFPs, which is a really naive thing to say, because half the world turns on RFPs. So good luck,
Yeah, no, I've been there.
Yeah.
I was a designer who was responsible for creating storyboards for the RFPs. Okay. Do you have a mission in life? If we're not talking about your job, about your work.
Wow, it's a lofty thing, a big word, mission. I don't know if I have a mission in life. I've had a mission so far, which is to make corporate communications more relevant to human beings, just by making them like some of the things they like doing in their spare time. Find out what humans like to do and do that. Why not? Why would you go against that? It's not about information. It's about how things feel. So that the mission has been that all the way along. And I think now, I think I want to, I guess, what does the future hold? I don't really have a mission. Here's how I boil down what will make me happy going forward, I think. Right? You never really know, but I'll, first of all, identify the bits of your job that you really love doing. Like when you say, oh, this is my favorite part, how do I do more of that? Or with better people or whatever. And so engineer a way of putting yourself in a position where that is your job more of the time than you have been doing. So if you've got 90% paperwork and 10% directing actors, and you love directing actors, then that's the problem. So get rid of the other stuff as much as you can. Just become better at doing that one thing. And being passionate about the creative process. I love directing actors. I love working with actors. I love coming up with stories. The brainstorming part of it, I really love. So I try to expand that as to that's where my worth is and where my value is. So that other people do the bits in between. You know, there came a point in Twist and Shout where somebody else had to do the invoicing. I was terrible at it. I would make mistakes. But secondly, it gave me time to do the bits that I really love. And so I could afford to do more. So you always just outsource the bits that are dull to you. And figure out a way of making that happen. Don't try to do everything yourself. There's a time when you will have to, but your goal should be to process that out of your workload.
Another question. What would be the universal piece of advice that you would give to basically everyone, no matter who they are, where they are, and no matter what they do?
Be kind. I'm sure other people have said that, but just try and be kind. I have a really bad habit. One of my vulnerabilities is that I use sarcasm a lot as a joke, but it can be quite cruel. And I'm trying to evolve into a better person, a better colleague, a better director, and a better dad. And I just really want to try and focus on being kind.
Well, sarcasm should help with all of that.
Yeah, not when it's wielded as a weapon. I can be very direct, and it is part of the way my mind works to be very direct.
Yeah.
Also, I have no filter, so I just blurt it out, and I'm trying to get better at not doing that. And
I think sometimes we do need that. Sometimes we really do need more directness.
Yeah, but actually, there's some people I do want to upset, but not everybody. So by upset, I mean, see clearly what I mean.
Yeah.
Like make a point. But I think, try to be kind, try to be direct, but phrase it in a way that doesn't have the sarcasm in it.
Yeah, I guess. And there's time and place for being direct and honest and the way to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, closing tradition. I have a closing tradition. I didn't tell you about it, and I'm sure you'll think of something. But the first part of it, the closing tradition is called lasting words.
Lasting words.
And my previous guest, you might know her.
Maybe.
Kirsty Everton.
Yeah, she seems familiar.
She left you behind the quote. It takes a lot of courage to look within, and the moment you do is the moment you take the first step as the hero of your own story. Doesn't mean anything to you. Is there anything personal that comes up with this quote?
Yeah, I would say, not in response to that, but alongside that, that all of the times in my life where I have listened to how I feel, my gut instincts, where that little feeling inside you that something's not quite right or something's you should go for, trust that compass, because that is your body trying to tell you that, you should go in this direction. And that almost without fail, when my gut has got involved, when there's just a feeling like, I don't know, that knife edge decision making that you have to make, all that's left is your gut. Your body is going to say that you're right, do that. It's fine. And it might be terrifying. It might be a big decision, but go with your gut. And I think leap and the bridge will appear.
And now the second part of this tradition. What I need from you for our next guest, and for you, to explain to me why it means anything to you. Is there any quote from your life, from a book, from a song, from someone told you, maybe a loved one told you something?
Oh, wow.
Something that you've heard and it hits you. Something that you've heard and you felt like, you know what, there is something in it. Maybe it changed your life, maybe it changed your way of looking onto something. Is there a quote like that?
My kids are an inspiration. They're amazing. And one day I was getting ready for a presentation and I was going to get up on stage, talk to a big group of people. I was getting ready at home and I said to my eldest child, which of these shirts will make me look thinner on stage? And they looked at me and I went, Daddy, going to the gym will make you look thinner. Out of the mouths of babes. So, that sometimes, children have got the answer already. It's a wake-up call when one of your kids says that. You think, oh, getting a little portly,
Yeah. We'll all been there.
It's not some massive wisdom, but it's always when you say, should I wear the black shirt or the white shirt? It isn't the shirt.
Jim, thank you so much. If you enjoyed the episode, or maybe you love, Jim's work, maybe you are a fan of The Inside Man, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and Jim, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Andy.